Welcome to the Know, I'm Ashley.
I'm Brian.
Battlefield 5 isn't releasing until this fall, but we're seeing some signs the game might already be in some big trouble.
Yeah, the franchise's return to World War II follows the highly successful Battlefield 1.
It seems like the perfect...
Right?
It's like it's returning to its roots. It's coming off a huge success with Battlefield 1.
But fans haven't been too impressed with this latest installment, and that's apparently translated into a lack of pre-orders, which is never good because they are not looking too great at the moment.
So far, the lackluster response to Battlefield 5 is a major problem for EA, which has already had a number of controversies that may have damaged the studio's overall reputation with gamers. Look, I get it wasn't sterling to begin with, but it's made it worse.
We've also seen one of EA's top leaders announce that he's leaving, kind of suspiciously timed, may or may not be related to all this.
Yeah, so let's get into what actually happened. In a Newswire story, Wall Street Journal reporter Sarah E. Needleman quotes the analyst group Cowen, who said that pre-orders for the game have been, quote, weak.
As for why that's happening, Cowen attributes those weak pre-orders to Battlefield 5's release date. Now, the standard edition of the game comes out October 19th, but that is sandwiched in between Call of Duty Black Ops 4 and Red Dead Redemption 2, so it's a bit of a crowded field. There's an argument there.
Cowen also notes that both of those games have been doing much better in the pre-order department than Battlefield 5, so it's not necessarily just pre-orders across the board being down, although there has been a strong anti-pre-order movement in general.
Yes.
It could be that Battlefield 5 ultimately ends up like Titanfall 2, and worst case scenario, which also released in a crowded field in 2016 and did not sell well, and that's in spite of Titanfall 2 being a great game, and if you haven't played it, look for a deal or something, because it's a cool game.
Yeah, it's great. This is, to say the least, not great news for EA, which we assume has a lot riding on this game. This is a huge franchise. They put a lot into it.
It's one of their big dogs.
Yes.
They gave Battlefield 5 a big rollout back in May, enlisting Daily Show host Trevor Noah to host the reveal event with developers from DICE.
DICE showed off some early footage of the game, which returns the franchise, like we said, to World War II. It'll also feature a return of the episodic storytelling campaign mode that we saw in Battlefield 1, which followed the perspectives of multiple soldiers from a variety of fronts.
It was a cool new way of tackling storytelling
Yes.
for Battlefield in particular. I think being able to jump across to multiple theaters and tell a lot of smaller stories.
Yeah, but they all had a beginning, middle, and end, all nice little bite-sized stories.
Yeah, and admittedly, that kind of storytelling is not for everyone, but it's interesting and it's something that they had pretty good success with for Battlefield 1. They also showed some new features, a new multiplayer mode, also the return of co-op to Battlefield, and for the game setting, it looked like they were trying to focus on less well-known areas of World War II instead of just doing all of the best-known battles like Normandy, instead of just retreading all of the same ground that's come before, both in the Battlefield franchise and just in World War II games in general.
Right. But ever since then, it's been no secret that Battlefield 5 has drawn a lot of controversy.
Yeah, in general, a lot of it has to do with the historical accuracy. Some gamers felt like the game's inclusion of female soldiers was an indication that the franchise was moving more towards a focus on entertainment, a kind of historical fantasy at the expense of historical accuracy. There was that lot of weapons. People felt like the trailer in general, that first sort of reveal, looked like, I don't know, like weird, like almost like a game stunt sizzle reel instead of a game that took itself and its history seriously, so people weren't really feeling it, basically from the reveal.
And EA, for its part, pushed back hard against that with its chief design officer, Patrick Soderlund, saying at E3 that if people had a problem with that, they shouldn't buy the game. He threw the gauntlet down.
Well, Soderlund, I get some news for you. He told Gama Sutra, the common perception is that there were no women in World War II. There were a ton of women who both fought in World War II and partook in the war.
Which is true, and it's not like Battlefield games have always been 100% historically accurate, but there is no doubt that Battlefield 5, it has rubbed gamers the wrong way, at least a lot of gamers.
Yeah, well, Sutherland also kind of called gamers out on that particular issue, saying, today gaming is gender diverse, like it hasn't been before. There are a lot of female people who want to play, and male players who want to play as a badass woman, and we don't take any flack. We stand up for the cause because I think those people who don't understand it, well, you have two choices. Either accept it or don't buy the game.
It looks like a lot of gamers took Soderlund up on that offer.
Yeah, so far interest not that high. You know, another interesting point too is Soderlund is actually leaving EA earlier this year for unclear reasons. They haven't really been specified. EA CEO Andrew Wilson announced his departure very recently, saying that Soderlund made the decision to move on from EA.
And it's hard to know what went on behind the scenes there.
And we will almost never know. Businesses generally can't talk about why that is.
Right, there's NDAs probably involved. While Wilson made it sound like the decision was mutual, there's always the chance that Soderlund was forced out. He was given the choice to resign or maybe get fired.
Maybe EA saying, we're not really happy with where all of this is going. Right. And it does seem a little weird for him to be leaving right before the launch of one of their biggest games. It seems like a time that you'd want all hands on deck, usually.
He's a public face, too. He's also had an active hand in some of EA's most notable franchises. He's the former CEO of DICE, which is now owned by EA.
And works on Battlefield.
Yes, he oversaw the development of a bunch of Battlefield games, as well as the Star Wars Battlefront series, which has had problems.
Yes, you may remember the Battlefront 2. That caused a massive uproar last year with gamers who were furious at how widespread microtransactions were in the game, even putting some progression items into loot boxes. They were removed really for the launch of the game, but the fact that they were going to be in the game at all rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, and people just weren't having it and decided, you know what, maybe we don't need Battlefront 2.
It was a massive PR nightmare for EA, to say the least. Like we said, they did back down, they did remove them, but
temporarily.
But their stock dropped. It was a whole deal.
Yeah, the damage was done though. A lot of gamers swore off buying any more EA games in the future, so it could be that part of the reason that Battlefield 5 isn't pre-ordering that strongly is that people are just suspicious about it. They don't trust that it's not going to be pay to win. DICE came out and we're like, look, no pay to win. Oh my God. But that people aren't necessarily buying what they're selling there. EA did say cosmetic only, we swear. And there'll be microtransactions. We're not doing the whole crazy loot box thing, but trust is low.
Yet they said they'll have a premium currency for cosmetic items and what's called a grind currency that you can only get through gameplay. Again, this is Battlefield 5 we're talking about.
Yep.
And they did stress it won't have loot boxes, so they're trying to put the best face on it.
And they may have alternatives. They're not really calling them loot boxes, but they got some stuff in there.
They got something.
EA is really trying hard to tell gamers that, hey, look, it's learned from the mistakes of Battlefront 2 and other games. The fact is, though, it's hard to recover your reputation once it's been damaged, and it's going to take more than just maybe a year to do it. They may suffer for this Battlefield. They may suffer the next Battlefront 2 as well, just with people not trusting it. And that's not a quick recovery.
Gamers also have very, very long memories. Very, very long. And in addition to all the controversy, all the microtransaction mess, it's also possible that gamers have just had enough of World War II.
Which is funny because before last year, everyone was saying, we need World War II games.
But Call of Duty World War II just came out last November, so maybe it's too soon for another game set in that era.
Well, it's like when all those asteroid disaster movies came out, all sort of like at the same time in the late 90s.
I saw the
Or you
Bruce
get all
Willis
those
one.
twin movies.
Yes.
Those are always fun. Well, it's also worth considering, just quickly, that it is, in particular, EA is not in a good place right now with core gamers who are the type to pre-order. We did see with Battlefront 2 as well that when the deep holiday hit, December, the sales did fine because it was people buying gifts, more of a mainstream audience, and they don't really care, they don't really follow it, they don't necessarily pre-order. So it may be that the core gamers, the ones that would be more likely to pre-order, just aren't. Doesn't mean that it's going to be a total failure, just that it's not in a good place with its core right now.
Yeah, I think those are like your regulars in a bar. They're going to keep you going during a tough time.
Right, and right now, they kind of want to go to the bar next door.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about Battlefield 5 having kind of weak pre-orders? Do you think it's because of microtransactions? Do you think it's because of the cost of historical accuracy in favor of the entertainment value? Let us know in the comments.
And for all your gaming news, be sure to like this video. If you're new around here, subscribe to the know. It'll also feature a return of the episodic storytelling campaign mode. It'll also feature a return of the episodic storytelling campaign mode that we saw in Battlefield 1. It was great. It followed the perspectives of But EA, for its part, pushed back very hard against that with its chief